Welcome to the UN Brief. Today we interview JeanMartins Bauer. He is country director for Haiti for the World Food Program. We spoke about his long career with the United Nations and the World Food Program in West Africa and in Rome, and also about the challenges at the moment in Haiti and the priorities for the World Food Program. Thank you for watching the UN Brief, and don't forget to subscribe.
I started in the West African Sahel. I did my first UN posting in Niger. At the time, it was 2001. The way we did business back then was very different from what it's like now.
In what ways?
Well, the programs are a lot larger today. I think in 2001 they were too small, and recently the UN's come to, and the governments we work with have come to recognize food insecurity as a priority. They rightfully recognize it as a priority, and national programs and UN programs to support the government in these countries have scaled up and reached many more people, and they become more complex and I think also more relevant. So we've been very, it's been quite a journey for people working in food security in that part of the world. So I have the privilege of working in Niger, in Mauritania, and Guinea-Bissau, the three of which are very different parts of the Sahel, but they're all parts of the Sahel, which is a zone in West Africa that's quite affected by drought and other issues that cause food insecurity. Recently, there's been more and more conflict in in that part of the world. But when I was there, it was really more about drought and those climate shocks. I also spent a few years in the regional bureau in Dakar. I knew West Africa quite well, and WFP posted me as a regional advisor in this West Africa bureau. I did that for a few years. I was doing market analysis. I did, in fact, a good chunk of my career doing food security analysis. And if you look at the bigger picture within the UN, there has been an effort increasing capacities for data for analysis over the past 10, 15 years, and I was definitely part of that as a food security analyst in Dakar. I was working very closely with other NGOs, with regional institutions to estimate the humanitarian needs and understand how food security programs could best be designed in that part of the world.
I imagine also that much has changed, right? Because now you have software, you have ways of sensors and drones and satellites
absolutely.
that can actually gauge much better, right? What's happening on the ground. Whereas before you had to go into these places, sometimes very adverse conditions, like post-extreme weather or post-conflict, right?
That's right. To acquire data today, it's easier. I think we had an issue of we had a deficit of data when I was an analyst at first. We'd get very sparse information from some parts of the world, and today the situation is very different. It's how do you actually manage all the data that we have to tell a story that makes sense? And the job of an analyst back then was to acquire information. So I'd spent a lot of time trying to collect info myself. Today, someone in the same role would actually be trying to sift through information, trying to find what's most relevant, or training models that give you the answer. And that's just a very different way of doing business. And definitely, everything you've described, from satellites to sensors, have changed the way we work. So that was actually an important part of my career, and so I did that in Dakar, but then in Rome as well. I was the head of a data unit at WFP headquarters in Rome. After which I became WFP rep in Congo and Brazzaville. Did that for 4 years. Also spent 2 years in New York to work on digital, and that was quite interesting to see how the UN is changing and trying to leverage technology to better do its job to achieve the SDGs and support governments. And moved to Haiti in May 22.
In Haiti now, tell us a little bit, what is the situation like on the ground right now? What kind of priorities do you have as the World Food Program?
Well, in an environment like Haiti, and maybe I'll just remind everyone listening that the issue is it's a country that's very vulnerable to disasters in the first place. It's one of the most hazard-prone environments on Earth. So that's It's a place where you had a massive earthquake in 2010, followed by a cholera outbreak, then Hurricane Matthew in 2016, another massive earthquake last year. What we're trying to do here in Haiti right now is make sure that we meet immediate needs. And again, the food prices in Haiti have increased by 50% in a year. It's a lot. It's also a country where there's a lot of people who are in acute food insecurity. So 4.5 million, according to the latest government figures. So we're trying to help deal with that through humanitarian assistance. But at the same time, we need to build the future, and we need to make sure that we don't do humanitarian assistance alone. That's not the right approach for this place. What we need to do is also build things that will last longer. We need to help the country's farmers get back on their feet. Haiti used to feed itself, by the way, in the 1990s.
Right, that's what I was going to say, because this seems to be like what we are talking about now. So like, yes, the World Food Program arrives, the United Nations, it's humanitarian nations, it's arrived, but also after, very quickly, you have to try to help people help themselves, and they have the capacity, you know, if you can manage
of course.
the challenges of security and so on, but that the agriculture could be reestablished very quickly, that people could produce, you know, food or create, you know, from the food, from the basic staples that the World Food Program gives. They could also get a restart, sort of an economy that can actually add value to these basic staples, right?
Well, we're definitely working on that,
and market stalls and so on, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, so this country imports about half of the food it consumes, and for some food items, it's a lot more. 80% of the rice consumed here is imported. Haiti is a big rice-consuming country, so that shows you the extent of the import dependency. But there is plenty of rain. There's land. And what we're trying to do to help is to support small farmers in this country, and they need more support. So what we're doing is we're buying food from them, and we're actually using that food that we buy in the school feeding program in Haiti. So you need to know that over 100,000 children in Haiti, every day they get a school meal, 100% from local Haitian food. I mean, food grown in Haiti. So what we do is that we work with 100 farm networks. So these are farmers, independent farmers, who sell their produce to WFP. This resolves a few problems at once. First of all, it's support for farmers. It's ensuring that they get a market. And then for the kids, they get a nutritious, local, healthy meal. So we're hoping that what we need to do in this country is base or work on local systems a lot more. So we need to support local businesses. We need to support local farmers, and to see how they can meet the needs of the people here. Example.
Well, what's the name of the program? Can you say?
We call it homegrown school feeding at WFP. So that's it means we buy food from local farmers, and we buy that food to school children. It is what it says. It means it's fresh foods. It's culturally appropriate food, nutritious foods that get delivered to children. In the case of Haiti, 100,000 children every day. This is something we want to scale up and do a lot more.
What else is on the works? Because I believe now it is a moment where you start preparing also for disaster risk, because the hurricane season is starting, right?
You're right, Maya. I mean, it is again a risk-prone country. It seems that the month of July and early August was quiet in terms of tropical weather. So, but we do have a forecast for an active remainder of the hurricane season. So we're working very closely with the government to make sure we have a plan and an approach to deal with emergency response. So what we have in country, for instance, is a contingency stock of food that's there in case there's a hurricane. So there are some preparedness measures that are in place, but then more of the work also involves preparedness around coordination with the different parts of government, the local authorities. We also have preparedness around things like data and information that would make us more efficient if we need to move quickly.
Redundancies, right, of servers and so on. And I imagine also that there is also a concern with making sure that the Met services are working, right? How do you gather this data? Like, because Met services nowadays can kind of predict things in a certain way that you'd have time perhaps to evacuate people and so on and so forth, and do all this, work you have to do in order to secure places and secure data. So how is the situation with the Met services, or do you collaborate internationally with the United States and other countries nearby?
Well, definitely the role of the UN here is to work with the national institutions, including the Met Service, so that they have better information on hand. We are in touch with them on various issues, and I think one of the promising projects we have here is to work with them to bring together data from various sources so that they have the best possible analysis for Haiti. As you said, we can predict things longer in advance. We can predict them with more precision. But prediction isn't the only issue. It's also the type of messages you send out to the population. So if you're living in New York, and I used to live in New York, you would get an SMS saying, I think this was like the hurricane last year. I think we all got a message saying, don't leave your house, there's flooding in the streets. So it's not just about the data you receive when you're the Met Service, it's also about the information you share. And those things need to be worked on here as well to make sure Haitian citizens get benefit from the best information. In a context of climate change, we need to think of the Haitis of the world and support them and make sure that they have what it takes to adapt. The thing I've seen is all these floods we've had recently in the U.S., for instance, but we've had this heat wave in Europe, and I can't help to wonder. Well, maybe not wonder, but I'm just hoping we do what's right for the countries in the Caribbean with less coping capacity, and that we make the investments now before the situation gets worse.
Thank you for watching the UN Brief, and don't forget to subscribe